A really good day for some and a really bad day for others. Here are the highlights and my thoughts from the F1 Grand Prix in China. Now, before we even got going, there were issues for both McLarens, Bortoleto in the Audi and also Albon in the Williams. All four of those cars were in the garage moments before the Grand Prix started, and in the end, they didn't take part in the race. So it was a terrible day in particular for McLaren, who scored no points in this race. Even worse for Piastri, who still has not started a Grand Prix this season. Onto the race, and it was a good start for Antonelli, better than his previous starts this season so far, but it was an even better start for the Ferraris, with Lewis Hamilton leading into turn 1, followed by Antonelli and Leclerc in P3. There was an early incident for Hadjar. He had a spin on track with Behrman almost getting caught up in it. Hadjar then had to pit for new tyres, which put him at the back of the pack. By lap 4, Antonelli had retaken the lead and George had also overtaken Hamilton and Leclerc. It was clear at this point that Ferrari didn't have the pace to keep up with the Mercedes. Both Mercedes drivers started pulling away, and by lap 10, Antonelli was over a second clear of Russell and Russell was over 3 seconds ahead of Hamilton. And speaking of lap 10, just after Verstappen and Lawson pitted, there was a safety car when Lance Stroll stopped on track and retired from the race. And then, of course, a flurry of drivers went into the pits, with Mercedes and Ferrari both double stacking, but it was terrible news for Verstappen and Lawson, who had literally just pitted. Onto the safety car restart, and Colapinto was in P2 with Ocon in the Haas in P3. It was a very good race for them at this point, and Hamilton quickly overtook Russell for P4. Now, at this point, I was like, if this was how the race ended, what a great podium that would be. Antonelli, Colapinto and Ocon. But that idea was quickly spoiled when Hamilton overtook the Haas and the Alpine. It was a terrible restart for Russell. Not only did he lose places to Hamilton, but he was also overtaken by Leclerc. His tyres were just not warm enough. Once he'd warmed up his tyres, he was able to start working his way back up the grid, and by the time we got to lap 17, the top 4 were Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc and Russell. By this point in the race, with the McLarens out of the race and outside of the top 4, it was clear that the battle for points was between Haas and Alpine. There was lots going on in the midfield. It was very exciting, especially when Max Verstappen got involved. At half race distance, it felt like so much had happened already. The Mercedes and the Ferraris were still close to each other, but Antonelli was out in the lead by over 4 seconds. The Ferraris were fighting with each other, swapping places a few times, which allowed Russell to catch up. He was able to get past Hamilton and start putting pressure on Leclerc, eventually overtaking him on lap 30. And all of this fighting allowed Antonelli to build an even greater lead. By this point, he was now 7 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. And going back to the fight between the Alpine and the Haas, Ocon and Colapinto ended up coming together, with Ocon admitting on the radio that it was his fault, and he received a 10-second time penalty for that. And at the same time, the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso retired from the race, which meant that at this point, there was now only 16 cars out of the original 22 still in the race. The Ferraris continued battling for P3, with Hamilton taking advantage of a lock-up by Leclerc and getting past him. They then swapped positions quite a lot for a few laps, racing very hard, but they needed to be careful because the last thing the team needed was for the two drivers to crash into each other. There was a lovely radio message from Leclerc where he said he was enjoying the battle with Hamilton, so there's no hard feelings there between the drivers. It was hard but fair racing. On to lap 46, and it was bad news for Verstappen in the Red Bull. He was forced to retire the car, but luckily he was able to get back to the pits with no issues, which meant there was no safety car. And in the end, the win went to Antonelli. He almost lost it at the end, locking up and going wide with just 3 laps to go, but he was able to keep it on track and secure his first win in Formula 1. It was a great race for him. He started on pole, he had a much better start, he was able to get back in front after being overtaken by the Ferraris, and he was able to build a pretty decent lead from the rest of the pack as well. As I said, it was his first Grand Prix win, and it clearly meant a lot to him. He got very emotional during the post-race interviews. And the rest of the top 10, Russell in P2, Hamilton P3, Leclerc P4, Behrman P5, Gasly in P6, Lawson P7, Hadjar P8, Sainz P9 and Colapinto P10. Now, there are still clearly some reliability issues with these cars, but hopefully it won't be long until the teams can get on top of those and we'll have a Grand Prix where at least all of the cars start the race and then hopefully finish it as well. It was a bad day for McLaren and Aston Martin. No points scored by both of those teams. An amazing day for Oliver Behrman, 5th place finish for him in the Haas, and also a good day for Sainz. He'll be happy with a points finish after Williams have not been very competitive so far this season. And Colapinto also ran an impressive race. He was battling hard with Sainz for P9 towards the end of the race, ultimately finishing in P10, but still points for him. And of course, it was great to see Hamilton back on the podium. His first one with with Ferrari, it's safe to say that this final podium that we got from this race was one that everyone was very happy with. And of course, a great day for Mercedes, another 1-2 for the team. Overall, the Chinese Grand Prix put on a show. It was a very entertaining race to watch. The Ferraris battling, the Mercedes out in the lead, the midfield battle between Alpine and Haas, very, very entertaining. And that is pretty much a roundup of everything that took place during the race. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to The Benchmark for more F1 content.